Call the hearing to order. I want to thank the Secretary for joining us this afternoon. I also appreciate your consideration of our schedule, Mr. Secretary, but you have had some experience here with the Senate schedule, so I think you were not shocked and surprised when we had to delay this 30 minutes. We certainly appreciate your taking time from your very hectic schedule to come up and talk about the administration's fiscal year 2012 budget for your department, Department of the Interior. And before I begin, I would like to commend and thank Senators Feinstein and Alexander for their great leadership of the subcommittee. As you know, they have shifted their focus now to energy and the water subcommittee, but they still retain their membership on this committee. They are valuable members, and we look forward to their insights and to their assistance as we go forward. Now, I want to just from the beginning prove that the Senator from Alaska and I are not a force to be taken lightly. I would just point out the fact that between our two states, we have more than half of the land in the national park system. Now, you could quibble over whether 41 million acres and 5 acres is a difference, but together we are 51.5% of the park system. So you've got a majority. You've got a majority right here before you, Mr. Secretary. Let me just say I'm delighted to be able to work with Senator Murkowski. She's an extraordinarily talented and dedicated representative, not only of Alaska, but of commitment to the issues that are important to the nation as a whole. So thank you, Senator, for your help and your assistance. And also I recognize, and she's done a good job of educating me already, that many of these issues are central to the communities of her state, vitally central. And I do recognize that, and I look forward to working with her for her constituents as well as the national, the nation. These programs have impacts everywhere, though. In my home state of Rhode Island, we have a rich historic heritage, the National Park Service. We have what I used to think was the smallest park in America, but apparently there's a park in Philadelphia, the Pulaski Park, that's smaller. It's less than 5 acres, but we have a national park. We have the John H. Chafee Blackstone River Valley Corridor. So we have national park influence and impacts, and I appreciate that very much. We also have a wildlife refuge complex. We have many things that we treasure deeply in Rhode Island that are governed by your department. We are involved in offshore wind development. You and I, Mr. Secretary, have discussions about that several times. So the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management is central not only to the Gulf and Senator Landrieu, but to up in Rhode Island and New England, New Jersey, both coasts, every waterway. And I really want to say how I look forward to working with you. Every area of this country is affected by what you do. The issues are critical, and as we go forward, I will continue to ask for your advice, assistance, and help, as I have in the past. The agency, the administration for the Department of Interior is seeking approximately $11.175 billion. That's an increase of about $100 million, or about 1% above the equivalent 2010 enacted level. That might not seem like a lot, but it covers so many vital programs. For example, the Land and Water Conservation Fund would be increased. Funding necessary to complete the very important reorganization of the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management would be included. Landsat operations are proposed for the U.S. Geological Survey. In fact, an increase of about $61 million for those operations. Some of these changes are laudable, in fact, one would argue overdue. But in this fiscal environment, I don't have to tell you, Mr. Secretary, everything has to be weighed very carefully, and very tough choices have to be made among programs. There are also in your budget reductions, $151 million for management efficiencies. I applaud those proposals, and we want to help you achieve those reductions. I know, Mr. Secretary, you recognize that this is a difficult budget. I also know and expect that you will be there to help us make these decisions. And as I begin my tenure here, it is our commitment to work with you to ensure that our public lands are protected, that we uphold our responsibility to Native Americans, that the department has its resources in so many different ways to carry out its critical missions. with respect to the revenue program, there is a request for additional resources, additional employees. Can you tell us how you're going to use these resources to increase revenues and get this office off the GAO high-risk list?
Absolutely. It is important to
Is your
recognize.
microphone on, Mr. Secretary?
It is indeed.
Thank you.
It's important to recognize, Senator Reed, that the principle that we are aiming at is to get a fair return to the taxpayer, because these are assets that are owned by the American citizen, and so it's a responsibility which I take seriously. It's a responsibility which I know you want me to take seriously. We have moved forward with significant reform efforts on the revenue side of what we do with the Department of Interior, including the creation of the Office of Natural Resource Revenue, so we can make sure that the problems that were there in the past, including the ethical lapses and criminality within the royalty and kind program in Lakewood, Colorado, that those kinds of things do not occur again. And so we are implementing the recommendations from the General Accounting Office, and in the budget that is before you, we have a request for $10 million for audit and compliance, so hopefully will allow us to do an even better job in honoring that principle.
Thank you. A related issue, and that's the issue in terms of inspection of some of these offshore drilling. You have requested the authority to impose an increase in fees from $10 million to $65 million, and this has been objected to in some quarters as sort of an unsupportable burden on the industry. But we did a little checking, and just as comparison, for example, BP, which had a Gulf of Mexico revenues last year of $10.9 billion, is being asked to pay under this new scheme about $1.5 million. That is 0.01% of their revenues. Similarly, Shell Oil, which made $61.1 billion in the Gulf last year, is being asked to pay $1.8 million, or 0.03% of their gross revenues. And I could go on and on and on. This money seems to be essential to benefit these companies and the American public by allowing you to be more thorough in your inspections, more confident in your leasing, and I am just surprised that this would be greeted by any opposition. I think it's a sensible, business-like way of getting the job done. So if you don't get this increase in fees, if you have to rely on the appropriations, the $10 million, what will that do in terms of the inspectors, in terms of speeding up the process of not only inspecting, but of just overall development of resources, Mr. Secretary?
Thank you, Chairman Reed. First, let me just say that the revenues that we seek here for the Bureau of Ocean Energy are absolutely essential if this Congress wants us to move forward with a robust energy and gas production in America's oceans, and we intend to do that, but we can't do that without the personnel to do the job. Secondly, I believe the fees that we have suggested are reasonable fees. I will just walk through a couple of them. But, for example, a $17,000 inspection fee for facilities that have up to 10 wells. $17,500 in terms of the inspection fees for those kinds of facilities, and there are many of those that are operating on platforms off the Gulf. Does not seem to me to be unreasonable. $31,500 for facilities with more than 10 wells. So that would be the inspection fee for a facility that has more than 10 wells. I think when you understand the complexity of these operations in the offshore, you have to recognize the need that in order to be able to do the job of inspecting them, you need to have the right personnel and the right resources to do it. And so the fee program that we have put forward in the budget to do the inspections, I think, is a reasonable one.
This is with respect to the Geological Survey. There is a $61 million request for additional funding for the Landsat program. And there's two areas I want to focus on. First, there seems to be a change in the basic program. My understanding is that previously NASA would assume responsibility and budget for the preparation, the launch, that once the vehicle got in space, Landsat would run it and distribute the data and do all the things that you had to do to manage the satellite. Now the proposal is, and this is for Landsat 9 and 10, there's already 5, 7, and 8 that are orbiting, that essentially the department will absorb all the cost and contract back to NASA the costs that they were previously fronting in terms of preparation and launch. So that raises one significant issue. Why are we changing it this way? Is this just sort of a moving money around on the federal budget between two agencies? What's the advantage? And it's significant because as I look at the numbers going out to FY16, maintaining or budgeting for 5, 7, and 8, the satellites in progress now, it's about a $50 million annual cost. With 9 and 10, because of the new regime, it's $264 million a year. So that's a lot of money going forward. Can you afford it? And again, why are we doing it this way if the previous system seems to work? And it raises a related question, which is information. Secretary Kempthorne determined to formalize the policy that this information is no cost to the public. And I think in the context of public libraries and in schools, that's great, but with large corporations that use this information for their own purposes, market it, sell it at a profit, there might be some consideration to some type of fee structure in which you would get paid for, which is very valuable information. So 2 comments. Why are we making the changes? Can you substantiate in a budget authority over several years this new responsibility? And are you thinking about charging appropriately for-profit use of the information?
Chairman Reed, the proposal you have in front of you is as a result of a very long and extensive effort that involved the President's National Space Council, and so that is where this proposal has emerged. I am going to ask the Deputy Secretary to address the issue.
Senator, the reason for the change basically is to mirror what we do with weather satellites, which is to have the agency that uses the data, that helps to develop the program and to implement the program for which the satellite data is used, to have overall responsibility for managing the data, et cetera. That is the Interior Department. We run the Landsat program. Traditionally, it's been awkward with the NASA essentially being the delivery mechanism, but they've also had sort of a gray area with us in terms of programmatic responsibilities. The idea is to consolidate those with us, have NASA as our partner as necessary in terms of the launching of the satellites, et cetera. We think this will be more efficient, that we will save money in the long run, and that we will have a more organized way to run this program. With regard to, and of course, the information from the Landsat program is central to the resource mission of this department. Our agriculture, water management, disaster response, national security, all is managed through the United States Geological Survey as part of the Department of the Interior and our companion bureaus. With regard to your second question about the potential charging for Landsat-type information. Under the current law, we would only be able to charge the incremental cost of the generation of the images themselves. That's the way the Land Remote Sensing Policy Act works. That incremental cost is very modest, particularly compared with the heavy public usage of this information. We have, in fiscal year 2010, more than 2.5 million scenes were downloaded, used by localities, states, federal. I actually represented the United States in some international discussions, and the availability of Landsat imagery is actually providing international benefits to the United States. So the most we think we could recover would be about $200,000. We think that under the statute, we think that the availability of this information for the public free is a tremendous benefit. And the transaction costs of 10 cents an image probably doesn't make sense. So that's our view on that, Senator.
Well, I appreciate it very much. Again, given the daunting challenges, the budget challenges, if there might be an opportunity or an obligation to rethink, not for the public libraries, for the for the individual farmers out throughout the country, et cetera, but for large companies that are using this information. And if there's a required legislative change, then obviously we would like to be informed. Thank you.